Without further, yeah, now we're gonna switch gears for a second. So we also recognize that so ranked choice voting is, as you heard from Ed, a national voting reform. It's working in other states. We also wanted to talk about this proposed Save American Act, and we're very pleased to collaborate once again with Alan Feliz, who's the executive director of OneV. He's going to share a little more about that organization. But we had an opportunity to collaborate last year. Our executive director Cheryl Clyburn Crawford and Alan in a deep conversation with Senator Ed Markey, right when we were hearing the first rumblings about this. And I think as the policy and organizing director of MassVOTE, I think, I'm not trying to generalize, but a lot of us in policy and democracy space thought that we wouldn't be here still talking about this in the way that we are, but unfortunately we are, and it's concerning. And we want to make sure that folks have an opportunity to ask questions about it and get some insight about where it's at and what this policy is actually seeking to do. So Alan is the executive director of One Vote. This organization was co-founded by him, and he serves as the organization's executive director. Alan has spent more than 2 decades working across the public, private, and nonprofit sectors, including leadership roles in affordable housing, finance, asset management, and technology. He has also worked on political campaigns across several states, supported a range of community initiatives throughout New England. This month, OneV is leading a national effort in partnership with organizations like ours, the League of Women Voters, Latino Justice, and other college voting rights groups. Shout out Harvard Votes, was also one of them, to oppose the SAVE Act, a federal bill currently being considered in the US Senate. With that, I will kick it over to Alan. And yes, the same applies. We'll be giving Alan any questions just in light of time. Please share them in the chat, and I'll make sure to kick it back over to him. So welcome, Alan.
Great. Thank you so much, Marisol. Before I dive in, can you see my screen and can you hear me? Great. Well, good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank Marisol and the entire team at MassVOTE for bringing us together tonight. MassVOTE plays a critically important role in our democracy. And as Marisol mentioned, over the past year, we've had the opportunity to collaborate on important voting rights work. And I'm grateful for that partnership. I'm also grateful to be here with Ed Shoemaker and with all of you. What I'm here to talk about tonight is really bigger than politics. It's about something fundamental. It's about whether every American can participate fully and freely in our democracy. Marisol talked a little bit about my background and my bio, but what I want to share with you at the outset is that what led me to co-found was a really simple idea. As I was working on political campaigns for the past 2 decades, I kept hearing people say that their votes don't matter. And as we all know, when people start believing that, they stop participating. And when participation declines, democracies become weaker. So with a group of close friends, we created an organization that's dedicated to strengthening participation and protecting the freedom to vote. So for those of you who are new to OneV, here's who we are. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization based in Somerville, but our work stretches from coast to coast. Our mission is simple. We work to amplify the stories of voters, to educate the public about voting rights, and to ensure that every American can fully participate in our democracy. And we do this regardless of political party. We don't stand behind a party, we stand with the people. For us, it's about protecting a foundational American freedom, the freedom to vote. Before I continue, I want to invite everyone here to do something. You'll see a QR code on the screen. Please, get your smartphones and point to that QR code. This takes you to the OneV website. If you could take a moment to scan that, you will arrive on our page, and you can enter your email address right on our homepage to join our network. If you want to be a part of a national movement that's working to protect the freedom to vote, we strongly encourage you to join us. Movements grow when people come together, and that's exactly what we're building here. Every expansion of American democracy has happened because people fought for the right to vote. Women fought for it, Black and brown Americans fought for it, young Americans fought for it. Each time the right to vote expanded, our country became stronger and more representative. Democracy works best when more people participate, not fewer. So, I want to talk about a piece of legislation that's currently moving through Congress called the SAVE Act. The full name is the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, and depending on who's discussing it, you may hear it described in different ways. Some lawmakers refer to it as the Save America Act, some call it the SAVE Act, others call it the Federal Proof of Citizenship Voting Legislation or the Election Integrity Legislation. Supporters say the purpose is to prevent non-citizens from voting in federal elections. But it's important to understand something right away. Non-citizens are already prohibited from voting in federal elections. That's been the law in our country for decades. So what would the SAVE Act actually do? Well, the bill would require individuals to provide documentary proof of citizenship, such as a passport, a birth certificate, or naturalization papers when registering to vote. Researchers at the Brennan Center for Justice and the Brookings Institution warn that these requirements could create barriers for millions of eligible voters. For example, according to Brookings, roughly 21 million Americans don't have ready access to proof of citizenship documents like a passport or birth certificate. That includes many seniors, many rural voters, married women whose names changed, working class Americans who may not have passports. The Brennan Center has also documented that when states previously implemented strict proof of citizenship requirements, thousands of eligible voters were prevented from registering. So while the bill is framed as an election integrity measure, many voting rights experts warn that it could make it harder for millions of eligible Americans to participate. Supporters of the SAVE Act often argue that stricter rules are needed to stop voter fraud, but the evidence tells us a very different story. Research reviewed by the Brennan Center shows voter fraud rates between 0.0003% and 0.0025% of ballots cast. That means it's extraordinarily rare. Even research from the Cato Institute, a libertarian think tank, has concluded that instances of non-voting are extremely uncommon. In fact, on this pie chart, those instances are reflected in that faint line that you can barely see on this slide. So the debate isn't really about whether fraud exists at all. The real question is whether solving a very small problem should involve creating new barriers for millions of eligible voters. To understand why the SAVE Act continues to be pushed forward, it's really important for us to understand the political context. After the 2020 presidential election, Donald Trump and many of his strongest supporters repeatedly argued that US elections were affected by widespread fraud. Those claims were examined by courts, election officials, and independent investigations across the country. Those investigations included many Republican election officials, were led by many Republican officials. They found that no evidence of widespread voter fraud would have changed the outcome of the election. However, the narrative that elections are vulnerable to fraud has remained influential within parts of American politics. Many lawmakers aligned with President Trump's election integrity agenda have continued pushing for stricter voting laws. That includes voter ID laws, proof of citizenship requirements, and restrictions on registration systems. The SAVE Act is widely viewed by political analysts as part of that broader push. Supporters argue these policies increase public confidence in elections. Critics, on the other hand, including OneV, MassVOTE, and many of our partners, argue that the policies could disproportionately affect younger voters, lower income voters, and communities that already face barriers to participation. So the debate around the SAVE Act reflects two very different views about how best to protect democracy. Let's talk a little bit about the legislative status of the SAVE Act. Last year, the SAVE Act passed the U.S. House, but it did not move forward in the Senate. That happened in part because advocates across the country raised awareness about the potential impact of the bill. Organizations like MassVOTE, Common Cause, ACLU, and League of Women Voters worked together to highlight the risks. As Marisol mentioned earlier, last year, OneV hosted a national virtual discussion called Stop the SAVE Act, Protect Democracy. The event included leaders like Senator Ed Markey, Cheryl Crawford from MassVOTE, and Jeff Foster from Common Cause. People from across the civic engagement community joined the conversation and helped raise awareness about the legislation. Personally, I think this was a powerful example of organizations working together to defend voting rights. I want to briefly walk you through where the SAVE Act stands today and what has happened so far in 2026. First, in the U.S. House, the SAVE Act passed on February 11th by a narrow vote of 2018 to 2013. After that vote, the bill moved to the Senate. In the Senate, the path forward is different. Most legislation requires 60 votes to advance because of the filibuster rule. Republicans currently hold 53 seats, which means they don't have enough votes on their own to move the bill forward under current rules. Based on current vote counts, the bill is not expected to reach the 60 vote threshold. In terms of options, Senate Republicans have a few possible paths if they want to pass the bill. One, they could try to secure additional votes to reach 60. That's unlikely. They could attempt to change Senate rules to eliminate or weaken the filibuster, or they could pursue procedural strategies such as forcing extended floor debate in an effort to move the bill with a simple majority. Because of this, it's important to be clear. The bill is still active. Until we know for certain that the U.S. Senate has exhausted its options, the outcome is not final. Donald Trump has made the SAVE Act a top legislative priority in 2026. He has publicly called for the Senate to pass the bill, has encouraged changes to Senate rules to allow it to move forward, and has indicated he may withhold support from other legislation until action is taken on the SAVE Act. So here's the bottom line. The SAVE Act, it passed the House, it's under consideration in the Senate, and while it does not currently have the votes needed to pass, it has not been defeated and it remains in play. And to make sure we put this threat away, this month, OneV launched a national initiative called the March to Stop the SAVE Act in order to pressure U.S. senators around the country to do the right thing and oppose this bill. This effort is happening in collaboration with voting rights organizations from coast to coast, including MassVOTE. We're proud of our continued partnership. Each organization is activating its supporters on different days. MassVOTE's activation date is actually tomorrow, Thursday, March 19. As part of the March to Stop the SAVE Act, OneV and its partners are asking all of our supporters to use this tool. This is a tool that's hosted by the League of Women Voters of the United States. It allows you to send a message directly to your U.S. senators to oppose the SAVE Act, a dangerous and misguided bill that would create barriers to voting for millions of Americans. The U.S. Senate, as I mentioned, is taking up the bill any day, and we need to pressure all of our senators to oppose it. Let me tell you how you can join this important effort. You simply scan the QR code, click the link, enter your address, and send the message. The entire process takes less than 2 minutes. But when millions of people do it together, those messages create pressure that lawmakers pay attention to. Now, some people may ask, why are we getting people in Massachusetts involved in this effort? After all, our senators Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey have been strong defenders of voting rights. That's a valid point, but my answer is this. This effort is national. When voters and strong democracy states speak up, it helps build momentum across the country. Also, I'm pretty sure every person on this call knows someone in a state where their senators need some pressure. So we need you to not only send another message to Senators Warren and Markey, but also to share this link with friends and families in other states. I want to close tonight with this thought. Democracy, in my humble opinion, is not protected by one big moment. It's protected by millions of small actions. One message, one conversation, one vote. When millions of people take small steps together, they create something very powerful. So tonight I'm asking everyone here to please take 2 minutes, scan both of these QR codes, join the OneV movement, and then contact your US senators to oppose the SAVE Act. Send the message and help protect the freedom to vote for the next generation. Thank you again to MassVOTE and to all of you for being a part of this important work.